I have always believed that music reveals a person's truth. Some people think it's the stage lights or the applause or the shimmering illusions of talent that expose who we are. But no, it's the notes. Notes never lie. People do. My name is Chloe Bennett, and on the morning everything changed, Boston was wearing its winter crown, quiet streets, glazed with frost, breath turning to mist, and the old red brick buildings glowing softly in the pale December light. I was sitting at my battered upright piano, the one I bought secondhand during my first year out of conservatory school. A cup of lukewarm tea sat forgotten beside me as my fingers drifted across the keys, searching for a melody I had abandoned months ago. It was a piece I wrote 2 years prior. Winter's Requiem, a quiet, aching ballad that had come to me during a lonely December night when the world felt too heavy and dreams felt too far away. I had composed it in one long, feverish burst, guided by instinct rather than theory, emotion rather than structure. It was mine in a way. Few things in my life ever were. I wasn't prepared for it to betray me. The email arrived at 10:17 a.m. I didn't see it at first. I was too busy trying to convince my landlord to give me a 3-day extension on rent. When I finally ended the call, throat tight and frustration burning behind my eyes, I saw the notification blinking on my laptop. From Evelyn Bennett, subject new assignment demo. Evelyn, my younger half-sister, my mother's pride, Boston Conservatory's rising star. A sigh slipped from my lips. I loved her. At least the part of me that still believed in sisterhood wanted to. But loving Evelyn often felt like loving a ghost. She was always out of reach, always shimmering, always adored by everyone but me. Still, she had asked for feedback, so I clicked the attachment, a simple piano recording. I recognized her delicate pedal work instantly. She had always been gifted with touch. The first measure played, then the second, a slow, icy dread crept through me, one note at a time. By measure 10, I froze. By measure 15, my heart was pounding so violently I could feel it in my throat. By measure 23, I was gripping the edge of my desk to keep from shaking. It was my piece, my melody, my chord progressions, my exact phrasing. Not inspired by, not similar to, not accidentally echoing, identical. Down to the subtle shift, from D minor to D sus 2, that I had used only once in my entire catalog. Down to the tiny rhythmic stutter in measure 32 that I had left in by mistake. She had taken my work, my most personal piece, and presented it as her own. I replayed the demo, hoping I was wrong, hoping I was paranoid, hoping I hadn't just witnessed the slow unraveling of a truth I'd spent years trying to protect. But hope is fragile and reality is merciless. When the last note faded, silence pressed into my tiny apartment. Like a weight, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even think. The betrayal was so sharp it felt physical, like a piano wire snapping inside my chest. I grabbed my phone and walked in circles around my living room. Another habit I never seemed able to break. My fingers hovered over Evelyn's name. I wanted to call her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why. But instead, I clicked on my archive. I searched for the recording of Winter's Requiem. There it was, saved under my old project folder, untouched since 2023. I opened it. The intro filled my apartment with a sorrow I had forgotten. Then I opened Evelyn's demo again. Then mine, then hers. Back and forth until it felt like the room was tilting. There was no denying it. My sister had stolen my music. After 10 minutes of disbelief and trembling fury, I did the only thing I could think to do. I went to see my mother. My mother lived 15 minutes away in a small townhouse that always smelled like vanilla candles and peppermint tea. As I walked through the snow, every crunch beneath my boots seemed to echo louder than the last. The cold stung my cheeks, but it was nothing compared to the burning pit in my stomach. She opened the door before I knocked twice. "Chloe, what a surprise, sweetheart. Come in, the kettle, just boiled." I stepped inside, brushing snow from my coat. Mom looked the same as always. Soft smile, warm eyes, wearing an apron, though she wasn't cooking anything. She was the kind of mother who hugged too tightly, who adored too openly, but always with one direction toward Evelyn. We sat in the living room, the Christmas tree lights blinking silently behind us. "Look at you," she said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "I've been telling you to visit more. Evelyn's been working so hard lately. You should take notes from her dedication." There it was. The familiar sting. The familiar comparison. I clenched my jaw. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important." "Then talk, sweetheart." She smiled, oblivious. I pressed play on my phone. My original piece filled the room. My mother closed her eyes, breathing deeply. "That's beautiful," she murmured. Then I switched to Evelyn's demo. Her eyes snapped open. "Oh, Evelyn's piece, isn't it stunning?" Her professor said it may be the crown jewel of the winter concert. "Mom," I whispered, "that's my piece." She blinked. "What?" "That melody. I wrote it 2 years ago. Evelyn copied it. Every part." For a moment her expression wavered, then it hardened. "No," she said firmly. "Evelyn wrote this. She's been practicing nonstop. She would never steal from you." I stared at her, stunned. Would never steal from me. My entire childhood was a catalog of things. Evelyn took attention, opportunities, affection. But this was different. "Mom, it's my work. I have recordings, drafts, timestamps." She lifted a hand. "Even if she borrowed ideas, Chloe, that's normal. Artists inspire each other." My pulse spiked. Inspiration isn't stealing an entire piece note for note. Mom sighed, rubbing her temples. "Chloe, sweetheart, listen to me carefully." Her voice softened in that condescending way she reserved only for me. "Evelyn has a future, a real future. She could be a star. You're talented, but you haven't been chosen the way she has." "Chosen," I repeated, barely breathing. "You know what I mean?" "Evelyn is special. She's the one the world will remember. You shouldn't stand in her way over something trivial." Trivial. My music, my creation, my heart on sheet paper. Trivial. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Evelyn had done. "I can't believe you're saying this," I whispered. Mom touched my arm. "Chloe, let's be reasonable. Let your sister shine. You've always been the supportive one. That's your strength. Supportive, quiet, invisible." She didn't mean to hurt me. She never meant to, but her words carved into me all the same. "Mom," I said slowly, "I'm not letting this go." Her expression shifted, cold and sharp. "If you cause drama for Evelyn, don't expect me to take your side. I won't let you sabotage her career." I stood. My chair scraped the floor. "Then I guess we understand each other," I said. "Chloe, wait." But I was already walking toward the door. Outside, the air was colder, sharper, cutting through my coat, as if the city itself were warning me not to lose control. I leaned against the railing, breathing shaky clouds into the icy air. Evelyn hadn't just stolen notes. She had stolen the only part of me that still felt pure, still felt untouched by my mother's constant comparisons, still felt like mine. And Mom? She had chosen a side without hesitation. Not mine, never mine. I pulled out my phone. If no one else was going to protect my work, then I would. I opened the folder containing my original recordings, drafts, and timestamps. A file name glowed on the screen. Winter's Requiem. Original, do not touch. I felt something settle inside me. A decision. A promise. Evelyn had taken my music, and I was going to take something back. Not through yelling. Not through begging. Not through quiet acceptance. No, I was going to take back my voice. The only way musicians truly can, by making the world hear the truth. Even if it meant destroying the fantasy my family had built around my sister, even if it meant burning every bridge behind me. As the wind howled against the Boston rooftops and snow drifted across the street, I whispered to myself, "This time I won't stay silent." And for the first time in a very long time, I believed it. The next morning, Boston woke beneath a veil of gray clouds, the kind that pressed low over the city, as if waiting for something to break, a storm on the horizon, a reckoning in the air. I wondered if it mirrored what was happening inside me, pressure building, tension, tightening, waiting for the moment it would all erupt into sound. I hadn't slept much. My mind had replayed Evelyn's stolen melody on a merciless loop, each repetition slicing deeper than the last. By sunrise, I knew two things with absolute certainty. Evelyn had stolen my piece intentionally. I would not let it go. Still, I wasn't ready, not yet, for the war I knew was coming. I needed answers first. So I walked to the Boston Conservatory of Music, its famous glass facade shimmering, even on an overcast day. Students hurried past me carrying violin cases, sheet music, and cups of too hot coffee, their faces lit by ambition and caffeine. I used to be one of them. Before life happened, before rent and self-doubt, and the weight of never being enough for my mother dragged me down. The moment I stepped inside the conservatory, the familiar scent of old wood resin and polished brass flooded me with memories. Good ones, painful ones, all tangled like loose strings in a broken violin. It had been nearly 4 years since I'd last walked these halls. It felt like walking through the ghost of my former self. I made my way to the practice wing where soundproof rooms lined the corridor, like tiny temples of sound. And there, room 214, I heard her. Evelyn. Her signature touch on the keys was unmistakable. Soft, delicate, almost translucent. A gift she'd never had to work for. Talent blessed her the way sunlight blessed stained glass windows. I pushed the door open. She looked up, startled hands freezing above the keys. Her dark hair was pulled back into a loose braid, her cheeks flushed from practice. "Chloe," she said, confused. "What are you doing here?" I closed the door behind me. "I need to talk to you." A flicker of something guilt, fear, annoyance flashed in her eyes before she forced a smile. "Sure. Of course, what's going on?" I didn't sit. I didn't smile. I didn't soften my tone. "You stole my peace." Her face went completely still. For a full 5 seconds, she didn't blink, didn't breathe. The silence stretched tight between us like a thin wire ready to snap. Then she laughed. "Oh, come on, Chloe, your piece, don't be dramatic." Dramatic. A word my mother used often for me. A word people used to dismiss truth they didn't want to acknowledge. I stepped closer. "Stop lying. I have the original recordings, the drafts, the dates. And I remember exactly when I wrote it." Evelyn's fingers tightened on the edge of the piano bench. "Okay," she said slowly. "Fine. Maybe I used a little bit of your melody. A little bit." I snapped. "Evelyn, you copied it note for note." Her jaw tightened. I improved it. I stared at her, stunned by the arrogance. The conviction, no, the entitlement rolling off her in waves. For a moment, I wondered if she even understood what she had done, or if she simply believed she was born with the right to take what she wanted. "You had no right," I whispered. "I had every right," she shot back. "You weren't using it. You weren't doing anything with your music, Chloe. You waste your talent." The words hit harder than a slap. Evelyn saw the way I flinched, but she didn't apologize. She pushed forward, her expression sharpening, her voice rising. "You've been stuck for years, playing in bars, teaching kids scales, never auditioning for anything serious. You act like you're an artist, but you're afraid of failing, so you don't even try." I took a breath, then another, letting the pain settle before it turned into heat. "So you decided you would use my work instead," I said. "Because it's easier to take what I build than to build something yourself." Her face flushed, but not from shame, from anger. "You're jealous," she spat. "Everyone sees it. Mom sees it. I'm doing something with my life and you can't stand it. So you come in here accusing me of theft just to make yourself feel better." Jealous. The word echoed in my mind like a warped chord. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. I didn't envy Evelyn's spotlight. I envied her confidence. I envied the way the world opened for her without demanding proof of worth. But jealousy wasn't the fire burning in my chest. This was about justice, about truth, about reclaiming the piece of myself she had taken. "Evelyn," I said quietly, "you need to tell your professor the truth. Before the winter concert." She froze. "No, absolutely not. If I do that, I'll be suspended. I'll lose everything." "You lost everything when you decided to steal," I said. Her eyes filled with tears. Beautiful, shimmering tears she probably wasn't even conscious she could summon so easily. "Chloe, please." Her voice cracked, and for a moment a small aching part of me, the part that still wanted to love her, felt weak. But I remembered my mother's voice, her dismissal, her warning. "Don't stand in Evelyn's way." I straightened. "I'm giving you the chance to fix this yourself." Or what she whispered. I didn't answer. I just opened the door and walked out. Behind me I heard her whisper something that sounded like a prayer or a curse. I left the conservatory with my head buzzing, my thoughts fractured like broken glass. Outside, the first snow started to fall soft and slow, blanketing Boston in white. Beautiful, quiet, deceptive. I walked without destination until I found myself standing outside the coffee shop where I used to study years ago. Old habits pulled me inside. As I stood in line, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned. It was Professor Dean Harrington, one of the most respected composition professors in the entire school. A man whose white hair and sharp eyes gave him an air of dignified authority. "Chloe Bennett," he said, smiling. "It's been a long time." "Professor Harrington," I breathed high. He gestured for me to join him at his table. Once we sat, he clasped his hands together and leaned forward. "I heard a rumor that you were back on campus today," he said, "checking in on your sister's progress." My stomach tightened. "In a way," I said. He nodded thoughtfully. "Evelyn is talented, very talented. But something about her newest composition feels different." I froze. He continued. "It's emotionally complex in a way Evelyn hasn't yet experienced in her life. Almost as if the soul behind the music doesn't belong to her." My breath caught. Did he know? Did he suspect? He looked at me with piercing clarity. "Chloe," he said softly, "you were always one of my most gifted students. You wrote with pain, with truth, with life. That is something that cannot be imitated." A lump formed in my throat. "Professor," I whispered, "what would you do if someone stole your work?" He blinked, then sat back slowly. "I would burn the entire world down," he said calmly, "until the truth stood alone in the ashes." The room pulsed around me. A chill crawled up my spine. "So tell me," he continued softly, "what has been stolen from you?" I looked down at my hands, trembling slightly. "A piece of my soul," I whispered. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. A glimmer of recognition. A spark of understanding. He leaned forward once more. "Chloe," he said, "whatever you decide to do it with precision, not rage. Rage destroys, precision reveals." His gaze sharpened. "And the winter concert, as fate would have it, reveals everything." I walked home with those words echoing through me. Precision reveals. It wasn't enough to demand an apology. It wasn't enough to confront Evelyn privately. It wasn't enough to plead with my mother. I needed something undeniable. Public, inarguable, exposed under the same spotlight that Evelyn had claimed for herself. And suddenly, terrifyingly, thrillingly, I knew exactly what I had to do. Not with violence, not with threats, not with tears, with music. The same way the truth had been stolen from me, the same way I would take it back. I reached my apartment door, breath fogging the air. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it. But not from cold, from resolve, from certainty, from the first spark of the plan forming like a melody inside my mind. A plan that would shatter the silence, expose the lie, reveal the truth with devastating clarity. Precision, I whispered into the empty apartment. Then I sat at my piano, placed my fingers on the keys, and began to play. Not Winter's Requiem, not yet. Something new, something sharp, something honest. Something that would become the opening note of the storm I was about to unleash. The storm arrived at dawn. Boston woke beneath a white fury, snow swirling through the streets like frantic brushstrokes across a canvas. Wind rattled windows, shook street signs, screamed through alleyways. It felt like the city was warning me. Once you start, you can't turn back. But I had already crossed that line. I spent the early morning sitting on my apartment floor, manuscripts and old recordings scattered around me. My living room looked like the aftermath of a burglary. Papers everywhere, pencil markings scribbled, annotations, musical ideas, abandoned or half-formed. My life laid bare and messy, just like the truth Evelyn had tried to bury, the truth that I was ready to unearth. My plan needed precision. Harrington's words echoed in me like a steady metronome. Rage destroys, precision reveals. I forced myself to breathe, to think, to move deliberately. First documentation, I photographed every page of my original score, every draft with its timestamps, every old email I had sent to composer friends asking for feedback. I uploaded everything to 3 different cloud drives, an external hard drive, and 2 USB sticks. I wasn't leaving room for accidents. Next, I opened Evelyn's demo again. Her polished playing filled my apartment and ignited the familiar blaze beneath my ribs. How could she do this? How could she take what I made, what I bled into, and parade it as if it were hers? That question festered as the snowstorm grew louder outside. At noon, my phone buzzed. "Mom." I considered ignoring it, but the storm outside made everything feel too quiet, too still. I picked up. "You left yesterday without letting me finish," she said sharply. "Not a hello? Not a how are you?" Just pressure wrapped in maternal tone. I heard enough. "No, you misunderstood," she snapped. Evelyn didn't steal anything from you. I clenched my jaw, Mom. She told me you stormed into her practice room and accused her of plagiarism in front of students. Do you understand how humiliating that is for her? I closed my eyes. Mom, no one else was there and she did steal it. Her voice sharpened into that familiar icy disappointment. You know, Chloe, I don't understand why you always do this. Why you turn things into drama. Why you can't just be happy for your sister. Happy for her. For stealing my work. For shining with a light that wasn't hers. I'm not going to let her get away with this, I said. My voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. A brittle silence. Then, if you try to harm Evelyn's career, you will break this family. I hope you understand that. I felt the weight of her threat, of her certainty pressing hard against my ribs. I'm not breaking the family, I whispered. I'm exposing the truth. Mother scoffed softly, condescending, dismissive. Truth is subjective. Chloe, perception is everything. No. I said, surprising even myself with the force of my voice. Truth is truth, and this time, it's going to be heard. She exhaled sharply. Whatever you're planning, you need to stop now. And then she hung up. I stared at the silent screen, a mix of devastation and fury thrumming through me. She wasn't protecting Evelyn. She was protecting the ideal of Evelyn, the perfect daughter she could show off to friends, the trophy of her motherhood, the star she had polished since birth. And I was the cautionary tale, the older daughter who didn't rise high enough, who didn't shine brightly enough, who didn't matter enough. Not anymore. At 3 p.m., I left my apartment and headed for the conservatory again, snow whipping against my coat. The storm was nearly blinding, but I moved with purpose, heart pounding, breath fogging the air like smoke. Inside the conservatory, warmth wrapped around me like a blanket. But I barely noticed. Students rehearsed in the hallway, violins tuning cellos, murmuring sopranos, vocalizing, music everywhere, chaotic, imperfect, alive. And in the middle of it all, I saw Evelyn standing outside Studio A, clutching her portfolio to her chest, talking to her professor, Dr. Lena Russo, the head of the winter concert. Russo was strict, unforgiving, brilliant, the kind of woman who could build or end a career with a single sentence. I approached before Evelyn could notice me. When Russo turned to face me, her eyes sharpened with recognition. Chloe Bennett. It's been years. Dr. Russo. I said I wonder if I could speak with you privately. Evelyn's expression crumpled into dread. She knew exactly what I was going to say. Russo raised an eyebrow. Anything related to the upcoming concert will need Evelyn present. Oh, this involves her, I said evenly. Evelyn stepped forward quickly, panic twisting her features. Professor, maybe we should talk later. No, I said now. Russo crossed her arms. Very well. What's going on? I took a breath that felt like stepping off a cliff. Evelyn submitted one of my compositions as her own. No embellishment, no venom. Just fact. Dr. Russo's expression remained unreadable, but I saw her shoulders stiffen. Evelyn paled. Chloe, she hissed, stop. Do you have evidence? Russo asked calmly. Yes, I said, all of it. Evelyn shook her head violently. She's lying. She's jealous. Quiet, Russo ordered. Let your sister speak. I opened my bag and pulled out 2 USB drives. I placed them in Russo's hand. One contains the original drafts dated 2 years ago. The other contains Evelyn's demo. They match perfectly. Russo studied me for a long moment, her gaze piercing. I will review these, she said, voice entirely neutral. Both of you will come to my office tomorrow morning at 8. Evelyn gasped. 8. But the winter showcase is... I'm well aware of the schedule, Russo said. But plagiarism. Miss Bennett is not something I tolerate. The judgment in her tone hovered in the air like smoke. Evelyn rounded on me the moment Russo left. How could you do this? She whispered, her voice trembling. Are you trying to destroy me? No, I said. You destroyed yourself when you stole my work. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't fall for it this time. You're going to regret this, she whispered. You're going to regret crossing Mom. She'll never forgive you. I stepped close enough that she could feel my breath. She doesn't have to forgive me. I don't need her permission to exist. Evelyn recoiled as if I had slapped her. And in a way I had, not with violence, but with truth. That night I returned home soaked with snow and tension. My apartment felt too quiet, too small, too full of memories. I turned on the lamp beside my piano and sank down onto the bench, exhaustion sinking into my bones. But I didn't rest. This wasn't over. And I knew Evelyn well enough to know she wasn't going down quietly. So I started outlining a contingency plan, another layer of protection. A compiled video comparing my original performance to her demo, emails ready to send to the school board if Russo tried to protect her star student, a letter to the director of the winter concert, a folder prepared for social media set to private for now. Not because I wanted to ruin Evelyn, but because I wanted to protect myself. Finally, at some point my fingers drifted to the piano keys, and I began to play the melody that started this entire war. Winter's Requiem, quiet, somber, accusing. Halfway through, my hands trembled, not from fear, from certainty. I wasn't just reclaiming a stolen composition. I was reclaiming the version of myself that had been silenced my whole life. Dismissed, overshadowed, overshined. Perhaps this war with Evelyn wasn't the beginning. Perhaps it was the middle of something much deeper. The beginning had happened years ago, when I first learned that in my family I would never be enough. But the ending was mine to write. I pressed the final key and let the note resonate. The sound was clear, strong, undeniable. A promise. Tomorrow the truth would begin to surface. And once it did, nothing, not Evelyn, not my mother, not the conservatory, could bury it again. The next morning arrived too quickly. I barely slept. My mind had been racing, darting between fear and resolve, doubt and defiance, grief and rage. Now standing in the cold hallway outside Dr. Russo's office, my stomach felt like a fist tightening around itself. Evelyn sat on the bench opposite me, shoulders trembling beneath her pale blue coat. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged. She looked fragile, breakable. I had seen her cry 1,000 times, and every one of those times someone had rushed to save her. Not today. Dr. Russo opened her office door at exactly 8 o'clock. Her precision was almost frightening. Come in. We followed her inside. The room was lined with awards, framed scores and photographs of past conservatory concerts. Moments of brilliance captured forever. I couldn't help wondering if Evelyn's winter concert would become another one of those photographs. Or an infamous cautionary tale. Sit, Russo said. Her tone was unreadable, but her eyes were sharp and cold. Evelyn sank into the chair beside me, shooting me a desperate look. I stared straight ahead. Russo placed the 2 USB drives on her desk. I reviewed both files thoroughly, she said, folding her hands, and I compared all timestamps. She took a breath. Not dramatic, but deliberate, like a musician preparing for the downbeat. Miss Evelyn Bennett, it is unmistakably clear that the composition you submitted for the winter concert is not your own. Evelyn let out a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Her whole body crumpled inward. Professor, please, if you could just listen. I listened, Russo said sharply. The room vibrated with silence. What you did is academic misconduct, Russo continued, and artistic theft. 2 of the gravest violations in this institution. Evelyn shook her head wildly. I didn't mean to steal anything, I just borrowed it. I thought Chloe wouldn't mind. You thought wrong, Russo cut in. But this is my future, Evelyn whispered, voice cracking. My entire degree, my scholarship, my career. Please, I'm begging you. Don't ruin everything over a misunderstanding. Chloe doesn't even perform anymore. She wasn't going to use the piece. That did it. Rage ignited in me so fast I forgot to breathe. I turned to her so sharply she flinched. Not going to use it, Evelyn. It was mine. My work. My experience, my grief. You took something you didn't earn, slapped your name on it, then stood on stage pretending you knew what it meant. Her lips trembled. Tears spilled. She looked 12 years old again. I admire your sister's restraint, Russo said quietly. She has more dignity than I suspect. I would have had someone stolen from me. Evelyn burst into full sobs. Now please, please, I'm sorry I didn't think. She turned to me crying harder. Chloe, please, please don't let her suspend me. Mom will die if my career collapses. Something snapped in me. Mom doesn't get to be part of this conversation, I said. She made her choice the moment she dismissed the truth. Russo exhaled through her nose, clearly exhausted by the theatrics. Miss Bennett, you are suspended from all conservatory performances, including the winter concert, effective immediately. Evelyn's sobs turned into wrecked gasps. No, please. You may retain your enrollment, Russo continued, pending a formal academic hearing. If you take full accountability, and complete the integrity program. You may be allowed to continue your coursework next semester. Evelyn collapsed forward, face buried in her hands. I felt no triumph, only heaviness, exhaustion, and a kind of grief I didn't expect. Dr. Russo now turned to me. And you, Chloe, she said gently, wish to reclaim authorship of your piece. Yes, I said quietly. It's mine. Then you shall perform it at the winter concert. My breath stuttered. What? Russo lifted a brow. Your composition is too powerful to be wasted, and after reviewing your original audio files, I know you are the only one who can give it the emotional depth it deserves. I stared at her stunned. I haven't performed publicly in almost 4 years. Her tone hardened like steel that ends now. I swallowed hard. But the program is already finalized. It will be revised, she said. Great art warrants disruption. Evelyn let out a choked sob. Professor, she pleaded, you can't do this. People will think I'm a fraud. Russo stared at her cold, precise. People will think the truth. We left the office in silence. Evelyn stopped just outside the door, leaning against the wall like her legs might collapse. You ruined me, she whispered. No, I said softly, you ruined yourself. She lifted her tear-streaked face. You think this makes you a hero? You think people will applaud you for exposing me? All you've done is show Mom that she picked the wrong daughter to trust. That cut deeper than anything she said before. I stepped back, breath unsteady. This isn't about Mom. It's always about Mom. Evelyn said, voice like broken glass. Everything you do is about proving something to her. Her words hit like a blade because there was truth hidden inside them. But that truth only fueled my resolve. I didn't do this for Mom, I whispered. I did it for myself. She wiped her tears angrily. Well, congrats. You get to play your sad little piano piece in front of a few hundred people. Meanwhile, I've lost everything. No, I said firmly. You lost the illusion, that's all. She stared at me with the hatred so raw it startled me. You will regret this, she said, I promise you. Then she walked away, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. I stood there trembling. I had won, but victory felt nothing like I imagined. It felt like standing in an empty theater after the lights go out, cold, hollow, echoing. The moment I stepped outside, my phone buzzed violently. Mom, I didn't want to answer, but I did. Her voice exploded through the speaker. What did you do? I flinched, Mom. Evelyn called me sobbing. She told me everything. How could you? How could you humiliate your sister like that? My mouth went dry. I didn't humiliate her. She made a mistake, Mom shouted, and you punished her like she committed a crime. She did commit a crime. Academic fraud is. Don't you dare justify this, she screamed. You destroyed her future. You destroyed this family, you selfish, jealous. I didn't let her finish. Mom, I said, stop. She kept raging. I can't even look at you. You're a disgrace after everything I've done for you. Something inside me snapped, not with violence, with clarity. Mom, I said again, voice steady. You don't get to weaponize love against me anymore. Silence. Dead, shocked silence. What did you just say? She whispered. I'm done begging for your approval. I'm done being the invisible daughter you can guilt into silence. You raised us both, but you only ever saw her. That isn't my fault, and it isn't my burden anymore. How dare! I hung up. My hand shook, but my heart did not. I was shaking with adrenaline, with fear, with liberation. For the first time in my life, I had set a boundary. The storm outside howled harder, as if applauding. That evening, I sat at my piano. Russo's words echoed in my chest. You shall perform it. I pressed a single key, a minor soft haunting. My heartbeat synced with the vibration. Tomorrow, the world would hear my piece. But it wasn't just about music anymore. It was about truth, identity, freedom. And as I began to play through Winter's Requiem for the first time in years, I realized something. The piece wasn't written from sorrow. It was written from survival. And now it would finally be heard, not as a stolen melody, but as a resurrection. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are countless real-life betrayals, twists, and revenge stories waiting for you in the next episodes. The winter concert arrived with merciless speed. One moment I was practicing alone in my dim apartment, letting old ghosts seep into my music. The next I was walking backstage at the Boston Conservatory's Grand Hall, a place I hadn't stood in since I graduated 4 years ago. The hall was enormous, a cathedral of sound velvet seats stretching into darkness, a chandelier hanging above like a frozen explosion of crystal. The air buzzed with excitement. chatter, the soft rustle of programs being opened. I could hear the orchestra warming up, strings shimmering with expectation. But beneath it all, I felt something else. Fear not. Fear of performing. Fear of what my decision would cost. Evelyn wasn't here tonight, not allowed. But her absence echoed louder than any presence could. I kept expecting to hear her footsteps behind me, to see her storming in with accusations, tears, and threats. Instead, the backstage corridor was still. Only my heartbeat made noise. At 7:40 p.m., Dr. Russo approached me. She wore a black evening dress and an expression carved from steel. "You're next," she said. "Are you ready?" My hands trembled slightly, as ready as I'll ever be. Her gaze softened slightly. "Your piece. It is extraordinary, Chloe. I hope you understand that the stage tonight is not punishment for your sister. It is recognition of you." Recognition. A word I hadn't felt directed at me in years. I nodded, "Thank you." Russo left me there alone, in the wings, staring out at the thousands of expectant faces slowly settling into silence. For a moment, doubt clawed at me. What if Mom was right? What if I had ruined everything? What if people saw me not as the rightful composer, but as the bitter sister? What if I wasn't enough? I closed my eyes, inhaled deeply, and reminded myself, the truth doesn't rely on applause, the truth stands regardless. The stage manager lifted a hand, my cue. I walked onto the stage. The hall went silent the moment I appeared. I could feel hundreds of eyes following me, curious, confused. Some recognizing Evelyn's last name, some wondering who I was, some remembering me from years before. I sat at the grand piano. Its polished surface reflected the stage lights, and my own face paler than usual but steady. I placed my hands on the keys, and then the house lights dimmed. A single spotlight fell over me. The world shrank to ivory and shadow. I began to play. The opening chord of Winter's Requiem rose like a sigh from a wounded heart, soft, slow, haunting, a single note trembling in a vast darkness. As soon as the first melody unfurled, the hall leaned in. Not literally, but emotionally, spiritually, I could feel it. The collective breath being held, the immediate recognition that the piece was not just a composition, but a confession. My confession. I played the way I wrote the piece years ago. With loneliness wrapped around my ribs, with winter clinging to my skin, with the quiet ache of being unseen. And suddenly, all the years of silence, all the nights I spent playing only for myself, all the moments I swallowed words and dimmed my own light, they poured out, note after note, measure after measure, truth after truth. By the second movement, my hands were shaking, not with fear, but with release. The music crashed through the hall in bursts of dissonance and resolution, like breaths fighting to stay steady. Someone in the audience gasped. In the third movement, the melody wound into a soft lament. The part I had written the night Mom told me Evelyn would always go further than me, the night I realized my dreams would never be held with the same pride. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't stop. I kept playing, letting the grief and beauty and betrayal run through my fingers like a river finally breaking through a dam. By the final crescendo, the piece transformed, lifting from sorrow into defiance, from mourning into resurrection. And the last note was not a lament, it was a declaration. When my hands fell still, the hall remained silent, a long, breathless silence. Then, not applause, not immediately. First something else, a low sound, like someone had finally exhaled after holding their breath for years. Then the applause began, slow, unsure, then louder, and then a standing ovation. The entire hall rose to its feet, clapping, cheering, calling my name. Chloe, bravo, beautiful, extraordinary. My throat tightened painfully, not because of pride, because for the first time in my life, I felt seen, truly seen. The spotlight didn't burn this time, it warmed. Backstage, I felt like I was floating, like every step carried me through a dream I had once been too afraid to name. Dr. Russo grasped my shoulders. "You reclaimed your voice tonight. Never let it be taken again." I nodded, tears still blurring the edges of my vision. But then I saw her, my mother, standing near the exit, frozen in place, her coat still dusted with snow. Her eyes were wide, glassy, not from pride, but from shock. I walked toward her slowly. She didn't speak at first. Her mouth opened and closed like she was searching for words she didn't know how to form. Finally, You played that," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "And it was yours all along." "Yes." A tremor moved through her lips. "Evelyn told me it was hers." "I know." She took a shaky breath. guilt glinting in her eyes like shards of broken glass. Chloe, I didn't know, I swear I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected gently. Her face crumpled. I failed you, she whispered. As a mother, I pushed you aside because I thought I was helping Evelyn, but I blinded myself. I didn't see you were hurting. I didn't see you at all. She reached for my hand hesitantly, like she feared I might pull away. For the first time I didn't, not because I fully forgave her, but because I was done carrying the weight of her choices. I'm sorry, she said again, voice cracking. I'm so deeply sorry. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We were silent for a long moment. Then I asked, "Where's Evelyn?" She couldn't bring herself to come inside, Mom said softly. She sat outside in the car. She listened through the live stream. She cried the whole time. The thought pierced me unexpectedly. Pain never sat neatly. Even rightful consequences left scars. I took a breath, steadying myself. Mom, I asked? Yes. I need space, from both of you. For a while, she nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. I understand, and I believed her. Later that night, I walked home alone under the falling snow. The storm had passed, leaving the city quiet and glistening under streetlights. I hummed my own melody under my breath, soft, steady, not as a requiem, but as a beginning, a new chapter, a reclaimed identity. A voice finally unburied. When I reached my apartment door, my phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. I'm sorry. I know sorry isn't enough, but you were breathtaking tonight. Your music, it's truly yours. I hope one day you can forgive me. I'm going to try to become someone who deserves to be your sister. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but I hope you find your own music. Not mine. Not anyone else's, yours. I hit send. For the first time in years, I felt light. Weightless, unburdened. My voice was mine again, my future was mine again. And in the quiet of my small apartment surrounded by sheet music and soft snow outside my window, I knew the truth. Sometimes the world tries to silence you, but sometimes if you fight hard enough, your truth will demand to be heard. And when it finally stands in the light, the world has no choice but to listen.